They laughed at his boots cracked, dusty, stitched with paracord instead of proper laces. What they didn't know was that those boots had carried a man through firefights where 5 minutes meant life or death. Cross Union Station in Dallas County was alive with its usual winter chaos. The hiss of bus brakes, the tang of diesel, voices clashing like an unending drill. People rushed past with heads bent, consumed by schedules and screens. No one noticed the old man on the steel bench, sitting ramrod straight despite the years carved into his frame. Colonel Daniel Hawk Mercer. To the world, just another retiree with a worn jacket. To those who knew, a ranger who had once led men through Panama's jungles and returned years later, recalled as a combat advisor in Afghanistan after 9/11. His jacket sagged on his shoulders. The fabric faded to a tired green, but his bearing betrayed discipline. His hands rested lightly on a pair of boots Altama issue, 1985, that had survived more than most soldiers. One sole was warped from desert heat. The leather bore scars from jungles and valleys. The laces were no longer regulation, replaced long ago with paracord tied so tight it would never fail. A group of National Guard trainees gathered nearby, their fatigue still stiff from the tailor, their boots gleaming with polish. Youthful arrogance radiated off them. One leaned in, smirking as if sharing a private joke. "Bet those antiques wouldn't last a week in Ranger School," he said, loud enough for Mercer to hear. Laughter rippled. A phone clicked. A caption was already being drafted for the digital world to mock. Mercer didn't flinch. He adjusted his cuff and pressed his palm against the boots, a gesture more intimate than defensive. The silence of his response only emboldened them. Another trainee chimed in, grinning. "Where'd you get those?" "It's garage sale, maybe surplus," but Mercer wasn't with them. His pale eyes were far away in a jungle where every shadow hid a rifle, in a desert where the horizon bled fire, in a valley outside Kandahar where tracer rounds had lit up the sky. His boots had trudged through all of it, boots that carried wounded brothers, boots that walked away from graves freshly dug in foreign soil. The trainees only saw cracked leather. They couldn't see the weight each crease carried, the grit, the blood, the promises kept. And then the crowd shifted. From the diner across the street, a man stepped out, civilian clothes, but a bearing too sharp to mistake shoulders squared. Gait measured, eyes trained by years of combat. The laughter faltered. Instinctively, the trainees straightened without knowing why. He wasn't looking at them. His gaze locked on the boots. His face froze. What he did next would silence Union Station. "You're watching Stories Untold. Tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more military stories that deserve to be told." The man crossed the street without hesitation, his stride steady like every step had once been timed to the rhythm of combat. He didn't need medals or a uniform to announce who he was. His very presence did it. The recruits watched him approach. Uneasy now, their earlier smirks fading into silence. He stopped in front of Mercer. His eyes went straight to the boots. For a moment, the noise of the station bled away, replaced by the rush of memory dust, gunfire, the smell of cordite. His jaw tightened. Then he spoke, voice low but firm. "Sir, permission to shake your hand." Mercer looked up at him, calm but searching. He saw the squared stance, the eyes scarred by things civilians never glimpse, the weight of leadership still etched into his shoulders. He gave the faintest nod. Their hands met calloused against calloused, soldier to soldier. The recruits froze. This wasn't respect shown out of pity. It was recognition. The man stepped back, reached into his pocket, and drew out a worn challenge coin. On its face gleamed the trident of the Navy SEALs. He pressed it to his chest, then snapped into a crisp salute. The station stilled. Conversations halted. Somewhere, a coffee cup hit the floor and rolled. "Commander Blake Rourke," he said, voice clear and commanding. "U.S. Navy SEALs. Afghanistan." And this man, he glanced at Mercer, is a legend. The recruits' faces drained of color. Their boots suddenly felt too new, their laughter too small. One lowered his phone, thumb hovering over the delete button. Another swallowed hard, shifting uncomfortably. Rourke's eyes cut back to them. "You have no idea what you're looking at. Those boots aren't relics, they're history. They walked through Panama in '89, when Rangers pulled men out of jungles you'll only read about. After 9/11, he was recalled Kandahar. 2002, he trained soldiers like me. Men came home because of him." Mercer shifted slightly, his gravel-edged voice breaking the silence. "It's not about legends. It's about promises kept." The words landed heavier than any reprimand. Rourke nodded once, then leaned closer so only Mercer could hear. "They're cutting the Veteran Housing Initiative at City Hall tonight. Council doesn't know what these boots mean. They need to hear you." Mercer's eyes narrowed. Slowly, he turned his gaze toward the courthouse dome rising above the city skyline. His jaw clenched. He stood, boots scraping against the tile. The crowd parted instinctively. This wasn't the shuffle of an old man anymore. It was the march of a soldier heading toward his next mission, and the mission waiting at City Hall would prove that the real battle had only just begun. Red Haven County Hall rose above the square like a citadel of glass and marble. To most, it was just another Tuesday council meeting. To Colonel Daniel Hawk Mercer, it was a mission handed down not by generals, but by conscience. Commander Blake Rourke's words from the station echoed in his mind. "They need to hear you." He climbed the polished steps slowly, his boots whispering against stone. Dust clung to the leather, leaving faint smudges that janitors would erase by nightfall. But for now, every mark felt like a signature against the pristine floor. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, sterile and cold. The clerk at the sign-in table looked up, skepticism written on her face. "Sir, this isn't a shelter. The mission on 5th serves dinner at 6. Mercer didn't react. He'd stared down muzzles of AKs with less effort. He reached for the clipboard, scrawled his name in block letters lined so straight they looked stamped. The clerk blinked, startled at the precision. From across the room, a man in a suit muttered to his colleague, "Guess Vietnam just showed up to argue about potholes." A ripple of polite laughter followed. Mercer adjusted the strap of his jacket, walked to the back row, and chose a seat with full sight lines to every exit. An old habit, honed in Panama when survival meant always knowing where the shadows moved. He sat, back straight, eyes steady. Around him, whispers stirred. A teenager raised his phone, snapping a picture of the battered boots. A mocking caption followed relic at the mic. But Mercer's mind wasn't on them. His thoughts drifted to Afghanistan. 2002, Kandahar Valley alive with tracer fire. The night exploding with RPGs. His boots had hammered the dirt as he carried a bleeding private across open ground, each step daring death to catch them. The weight of another man's life bore down on his shoulders. But his legs never gave. Every squeak of leather in the city hall now echoed that night's pounding sprint. Back in the chamber, the city manager clicked a remote, slides flashing neat pie charts across the wall. "We recommend reallocating funds from the Veteran Housing Initiative to the Downtown Beautification Project." He droned. Applause came from the Chamber of Commerce seats. Mercer's jaw tightened. His number was called. He rose with deliberate dignity, boots squeaking against polished marble. The sound drew chuckles from the front row. He stepped to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and spoke. His voice was gravel wrapped in steel. "My name is Colonel Daniel Mercer. I'm not here for charity. I'm here because promises don't expire." The laughter stopped. Eyes flicked away. Councilmen shifted uncomfortably. And then the back doors groaned open. A uniformed figure entered. The chamber was about to learn what respect looked like. The heavy doors closed behind her, and silence rippled across the chamber. Chief Elena Torres strode in, her uniform pressed sharp, ribbons aligned, posture as unyielding as steel. At 42, she was Red Haven's youngest police chief and its most decorated. Her eyes swept the room the way soldiers sweep a kill zone, measuring, assessing. When they found Mercer at the podium, she froze. Then, with slow, deliberate precision, Torres removed her cap. Her right hand rose in a flawless salute. The room stilled. Paperwork halted. The mayor's gavel stopped mid-air. The teenagers, the suited men, the council members, everyone stared, bewildered. Why would the city's police chief salute an old man the clerk had dismissed minutes earlier? Mercer didn't turn. He didn't need to. Soldiers sensed their own. "Chief Torres," the mayor stammered. Do you have something to add?" Her salute held firm, her voice steady. "Yes, sir. Back in 2002, after 9/11, Colonel Mercer was recalled as a combat advisor in Afghanistan. I was 19. He trained me in Kandahar. I thought I'd break. He pushed me until I didn't, because of him. I didn't die. Because of him. 3 of my men made it home." Gasps broke the silence. Phones that had been raised for mockery now filmed in reverence. The teenager who had posted Mercer's boots online lowered his head, shame burning his cheeks. Torres finally lowered her hand, but she didn't retreat. Each step toward the podium struck like a drum beat. She stopped at Mercer's side. Not behind him, not in the crowd, but shoulder to shoulder. Her eyes cut across the council. "You're debating veterans' housing versus flower beds. Let me give you what your slides don't show. This man dragged me out from under RPG fire. He carried brothers through machine gun fire when the ground itself turned to shrapnel. His boots walked through hell so you could sit here and argue about streetlights." The mayor flushed. Council members shifted, avoiding her gaze. The air thickened, not contempt now, but shame. Torres rested her hand lightly on Mercer's arm. "Before you vote," she said, her tone a hammer on stone. "Remember this, you're not just cutting dollars. You're cutting your honor." A hush swept the chamber. Eyes returned to Mercer, waiting. He drew a breath, his jaw like granite. His voice was quiet but thunderous in its weight. "Promises kept, or promises broken. Which side of history do you want to stand on?" The words rang through the chamber, daring an answer. And the answer that came next would shake Red Haven County Hall to its core. The chamber sat frozen. Mercer's words, promises kept, or promises broken, still reverberated like the last echo of a rifle shot. Council members exchanged uneasy glances. Some scribbled nervously on notepads. Others avoided looking at the veteran at the podium, as if his very presence was a judgment. Chief Torres leaned into the microphone, her tone cutting the silence. "I'll remind this council legacies don't expire. You're not voting on numbers. You're voting on whether service still matters once the battlefield fades from view." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Councilwoman Diaz cleared her throat. "I'd like to propose an amendment," she said carefully. "Instead of cutting the Veteran Housing Initiative, I move we increase funding by 15%. Murmurs erupted. A real estate developer shot to his feet. "This is reckless. Our downtown project is critical. We can't cripple growth for sentiment." Another councilman added sharply, "We've carried this program for years. Enough is enough. We need progress. Not nostalgia, But the opposition was met head-on. An older woman in the gallery rose, silver hair gleaming. My father came home from Korea in boots like his. He never asked for anything. Don't call this sentiment. Call it a debt. Applause rippled through the gallery. A college student stood, voice trembling but clear. Cutting housing tells us promises mean nothing. What kind of city do we want to be? The chamber shifted. A shop owner raised his hand. A veteran's widow spoke quietly. And in the back, the teenager who had mocked Mercer earlier stared at his phone, shame on his face. He deleted his first post and replaced it with a new photo, Mercer at the podium, Torres at his side, caption today. I saw what respect looks like. The mayor pounded his gavel, calling for order as debate surged hotter. Developers protested, citizens countered. The chamber was no longer sterile, it was a battlefield of words. Finally, the amendment went to vote. Hands rose slowly, one by one. Not all 2 councilmen kept theirs down, lips tight with defiance. But the majority was clear. The measure carried. Veterans had won. Mercer didn't smile. He didn't nod. He simply stepped back from the microphone and returned to his seat. To him, this wasn't triumph. It was duty fulfilled, another promise honored. When the meeting adjourned, people approached him quietly. A shopkeeper clasped his hand in both of hers. A young guardsman snapped to attention and saluted. Words failed, but eyes carried the weight of understanding. Torres walked him out. Stride matched to his. At the doors, Mercer murmured, "You didn't have to do that." With respect. "Colonel," she replied softly, "you taught me I did." In the weeks that followed, headlines replayed the confrontation, veterans stand forces council reversal. Local news replayed Torres's salute. The program expanded, housing secured. Shuttles funded, jobs created, and every quarter, Torres placed a pair of boots beneath the American flag in City Hall. Not explained, not disturbed. Mercer still walked the same 3 miles into town. Same jacket, same boots. But now, doors opened before he reached them. Teenagers straightened at the sight. Shop owners nodded quietly, not for the man, but for what he represented. One snowy evening, a young mother stopped him with her son. "My father was in Afghanistan," she whispered. "He didn't come home. Could my boy shake your hand?" Mercer knelt, knees aching but steady. He took the child's hand gently. His voice was low, carrying the weight of brotherhood. "Your dad," Mercer said, "was my brother." The boy nodded solemnly, and Mercer knew these footsteps weren't just his anymore.